Welcome, everyone. And it is 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock, and we try and start sharp, especially when we're with so many sharp people. So we better get on it. We're trying to make today these 90 minutes as valuable, even more valuable than billable hours. So we're going to let you get to it. Before we start, I have to ask you all to join your Women's Fund Miami-Dade board members, our small but mighty staff, and our pacifist army of interns. In joining us to welcome today's event partners, the Gwen S Black Women Lawyers Association and the Miami-Dade Chapter of the Florida Association for Women Lawyers. Thank you so much for partnering with us. And in joining us in welcoming our elected officials, including the Honorable Judge Carol Kelly, the Office of County Commissioner Danielle Cohen-Higgins, the City of North Miami Beach, the Attorney General of Mississippi, and the Office of our own State Attorney, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, plus members of the Miami-Dade Commission for Women. And with much gratitude for your ongoing collaborations with us in your time today, the University of Miami's Rebecca Fox, and the CEO of Christie House, Amanda Altman, Esquire. This Impact Collaborative Series is empowered by 1 Billion Rising and the Carlo and Nicole Scaiola Foundation. Thank you for your support in every single way. And speaking of all important fuel for our collective mission to create a world where power and possibility are not limited by gender. Today, we are announcing the inaugural sponsorship of the first of our 4 pillars. And here to tell us the why behind that support is Kaufman Rawson's Principal and Marketing Director, Ms. Janet Altman. Janet, welcome.
Thank you, Maria. It's so good to be here and with this great group. I wanted to just talk about how excited we are to be the pillar sponsor for economic mobility. Some of you I've known for a long time, and when I was on the board and chair of the Women's Fund, we initiated a program called Equal Pay Miami-Dade, where we worked with the county and with others to try and push forward on some of the equal pay initiatives that our women so desperately need. And it was my privilege to get my firm to sponsor not just that, but now to come back to the table and sponsor the economic mobility pillar for this year. So thank you so much, Maria, for reaching out to me. And thank you for bringing this together and allowing Kaufman Rawson to participate.
We thank you and your billboard and your Metro Rails and that bill it's up as we speak. As you're driving to work, anybody who's going into work, you'll see it, and we can thank Janet for that billboard.
I love that billboard campaign. I think it's very disruptive, and I always think we should be disruptive when it comes to really important issues.
We're with you, Janet. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we have new exciting news that we just confirmed the sponsorship of our second pillar, our Freedom from Violence pillar. And that's thanks to the Anthony R. Abraham Foundation, with very special thanks to Norma Jean Abraham, who's also happens to be on our host committee of, and speaking of excited, Power of the Purse 2021. Yes, right there. Those are our featured speakers, Madam Mayor, Jane Fonda, Cedella Marley, V, formerly known as Eve Ensler, and Aja Monet, all representative of our 4 different pillars. Thank you so much for considering coming to join us. You can sign up, please do, please do. And now to talk about our second signature event throughout history, another former board member, Ms. April Boyer. April, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to announce that Raise the Bar is back. Hopefully we'll be one of the premier and first in-person networking events post hopefully everybody getting a vaccine in 2021. The event is going to be on October 14th at the Jewel Box, which is where it was held last time it was in person. And we are forming the planning committee now. It's a great opportunity to meet and network with some of your fellow members. I'm going to post in the chat my contact information, so please reach out to me, or you can reach out to the Women's Fund and we will add you to the planning committee. And basically, as a planning committee member, your responsibilities are to help to organize the event we have a silent auction. So finding great silent auction items and sponsors and just promoting the event and getting as many people to come to a really fun networking event. Raise the Bar's purpose is to raise money to help the Women's Fund in their advocacy and fight against both domestic violence and human trafficking. And it also supports the Amy Karen Fund. So it's a great organization, or it's a great event. It's a lot of fun, and you do something great for the community. So I would really encourage you to join the planning committee and connect. Some of the people on the panel I've met through the planning committee over the years, and we've become professional friends and referred business to each other. So it's a great opportunity for yourself, and it's a great opportunity to give back.
Thank you so much, April. Thank you so much. Each Impact Collaborative is a little bit different, and this one is certainly no exception. In big picture, how this webinar is going to work, we do launch polls. Please participate. They're meaningful. It will make a difference, and we take that feedback and we run with it, as we do with the survey results. And that will be in your inbox as soon as you finish this webinar. And it's quick. It's fast. And we ask you to please participate. It ties a ribbon, and then we go back to it for reference. So, as we usually do, we'll ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves with their illustrious careers in less than 2 minutes in context of what this webinar is all about. And then in the same order, we'll ask you each to go and talk about the main challenges that you see within the context of this topic of today. And then finally, the most important part, 3 minutes to talk about solutions, and then we'll open up to the Q&A. And we ask everybody in the audience, many of you who have been panelists and experts here before, please do put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. We are going to ask our keynote speaker to actually join that Q&A at the end, and that will lead me to now to introduce Dr. Maria Ilcheva, who's going to present data and survey results that she's going to tell you all about. We're very, very grateful for Dr. Ilcheva, not only being our board member, but an expert. She's the creator of the survey, the chair of our research committee, and much more. Maria, please take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm honored and awed to be in the presence of so many amazing women, and I look forward to connecting with you. As Maria said, I'm one of the board members of the Women's Fund, and I'm a researcher by profession and by passion. So what I will talk to you about is some of the data that we uncovered through the survey that we conducted over the last 3-4 weeks, the past month, with the sample of women lawyers in South Florida, mostly Miami-Dade, but we did get some responses from Broward and Palm Beach. Before I get into that, though, I want to put the topic in some context, with some additional information that we discovered through the Status of Women, the annual Status of Women report in Miami-Dade County that I've worked on for with the Miami Commission for Women and the Office of the Commission Auditor. So first, some of the numbers. Why do we talk about this? Well, the reason is because when we were looking at the data, we discovered that the legal profession, legal occupations showed the most significant gap as a grouping, the legal professions. And I'll talk about what are the types of jobs typical for that sector. So obviously that raised eyebrows, that raised questions, and we wanted to dig deeper. We know that in 2019, according to the US Census, there were over 11,000 women in Miami-Dade County working full-time in legal occupations. To about the previous slide, I'm still on the previous slide, and about 7,700 men. Within the legal occupations category, there are 3 main occupations: lawyers and judicial law clerks, that grouping, judges, magistrates, and other judicial workers, and legal support workers. Women are, based on the number that I just told you, are 59% of employees in these occupations because they're overrepresented in the legal support worker category, in which about paralegals basically are the majority in that, and 82% of them are women. Women are only 41% of lawyers and judicial law clerks, but the percentage has been growing over the years, and currently it's at 41%. In 2010, it was 33%. So women were only about a third of workers in that category. The reason for the increased proportion is because of the larger increase of women than men who hold full-time jobs in this category. So women are catching up in representation. On the next slide now. Next, I want to show you some of the numbers for the United States as a whole. And the reason why I want to go to this next level of geography is because we don't have good local data specifically for women lawyers. The way the census groups its occupations, it's kind of mixed in with paralegals and all the other occupations that I mentioned. But there is no reason why we should believe that Miami-Dade or South Florida is any different in terms of the pay gap. In the United States, the number of women lawyers almost doubled since 2010. Only 26% of lawyers in 2010 were women, and the percentage now has increased to 38%. Despite this increase, though, the pay gap for women lawyers in the United States decreased from 26% in 2010 to 23% in 2019. So despite the increased representation, the gap is still persisting. And something interesting, if you look at how the gap is changing over time, it will take women lawyers another 7 decades for them to catch up to men, if the gap is decreasing by 3 percentage points per decade. That accounts for losses, again, assuming earnings remain as they were in 2019, that accounts for losses in earnings of $1.4 million over the work life, the career span of women lawyers. And with that context, I want to talk about our survey results. This slide only shows that we have a broad representation from different types of law practice in terms of the different ages, in terms of different work settings, etc. I'll jump into the more substantive information next, which is the more interesting part of our survey. I want to thank everyone. I'm sure that there are a lot of women who are present here who participated. I'm sorry that slide got a little messed up, but I hope it's still easy for you to read. We asked about the reasons why women are pursuing law careers. And despite all the challenges, there is a recognition of the importance of the profession. The majority of women we surveyed indicated the desire to change society and to ensure justice or fair play. And the fact that the law degree has a good earning power was also recognized with over 50% indicating income as a major draw to the legal profession. Next, we also asked women lawyers to indicate policies or practices that are in place at their current firm or organization. We know that many firms, as well as local and state bar associations, have diversity initiatives in place aimed not only at hiring, but also towards support for professional development and for workplaces that allow for differing career goals and family structures. And this is reflected in the majority of women indicating good practices like parental leave, flexible schedules, telecommuting as policies present in their organization. However, only small percentages reported there are clear criteria for advancement in their organizations or pay transparency. And we'll get to the issue of pay transparency in just a minute. Next, we ask women to select the 3 most significant challenges or concerns they personally face as an attorney. High stress and work-life balance were at the top, but responses also indicated typical work challenges like time management, business generation, and billable hours. We also had other options that women selected. For example, 18% indicated lack of mentoring and 15% indicated gender bias. We'll have the complete results released probably in a week or so, where you'll be able to see this broader distribution of responses in terms of concerns and challenges. One of the more disturbing findings we discovered is the large percentage of women who have experienced inappropriate behavior at work because of their gender. Almost 2/3 reported they have experienced condescending treatment of female attorneys by male attorneys, and also being consistently interrupted or cut off because of their gender. A majority also indicated inappropriate use of names like dear and sweetie toward female attorneys, and the telling of sexist or demeaning jokes. There were many other disturbing behaviors that were reported, such as verbal advances, inappropriate comments on appearance, and condescending behavior from judges or litigants and witnesses. And with this slide, I will try to end on a little bit of a positive note by showing probably what is the path forward. The legal professions still have a lot of room for improvement when it comes to closing the gender wage gap, especially in terms of partners and executives. There is a lot of research that points about bigger disparities as women progress further in their careers. However, there is good news on the horizon. There are people and organizations fighting for equal pay for women, both in the legal realm and in general. When we ask women lawyers about what could be possible actions to reduce or eliminate the gap, the results are actually similar to what women in other professions would consider important. More than half indicated pay transparency, and almost half consider compensation policy maybe to blame for the gap. I'm hopeful, though, that as more women enter the field, and certainly we see the trends in that regard, we will see the pressure growing on companies to address such issues. I look forward to the discussion and hearing from the other panelists, their perspective and experiences. Thank you very much. As I said, more detailed results we will be releasing in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Luteva, and thank you for staying around and being with us at the end for the Q&A, because I'm envisioning that there might be more questions from our attendees about the survey results or some of the information that you have. So thanks so much. So I know it's going to be hard, but Sheena, you're our first person to take the test. Can you summarize a little bit about why you're here today in 2 minutes?
Well, I do my best. I will do my best. So thank you, everyone, for having me today. Thank you for this amazing panel and for this very important topic. My name is Sheena Benjamin Wise. I have a law firm, the law offices of Sheena Benjamin Wise, which is primarily a marital and family law practice. And I've been in practice for 19 years. Of those 19 years, I had 5 years at a small boutique law firm. So I can draw some experiences from those 5 years. I'm also a graduate of the University of Miami and Nova Southeastern Law School. And I am the president of Gwen S. Black Women Lawyers Association. And so our organization is established in 1985 with an emphasis to provide legal, social, economic, and political needs to our community, but also support the professional development of Black women lawyers. So this is very true to our organization and our members, and how this topic specifically impacts our members. So the title of this presentation is it legal? We know the answer, no, it is not. But we know that our employers and employers all over the country are prohibited from discrimination in this way, but as you can see, the data supports that there has been a substantial gap in our profession. So when we encourage our daughters and our nieces to go to school, to go to law school, because they're smart and they can make a difference in their community, we anticipate that they are going to be treated fairly and have the same opportunities as their comrades. And, you know, we should not have to have this conversation ongoing, but we do. And it's important to continue to press forward and press hard to make a change for our community, because it's that generation that we're working for. It's that generation that we're trying to make a difference for, so that you know, we can make a difference in this world, you know. So that's what I have for now. I hope I've passed the test, and I look forward.
Enjoy working with you, putting this whole thing together. Thanks so much. It's a great beginnings.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Dory, thank you so much for your time and for being here. We got you. Please take it away.
Hi. So thank you for having me. This is such an important topic. I am Dory Foster Morales. I am a lawyer in Miami-Dade County. I run a small boutique family law firm. I like to know Sheena very well. I'm also a family lawyer. My practice involves 5 other lawyers, so we're 6 lawyers together. I would call us a large small firm, meaning most family law firms are pretty small. We're on probably the larger side by having 6 lawyers in total and support staff and so forth. I am also currently the president of the Florida Bar. I was, you know, a product of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So I was, while I wasn't born here, I came when I was 6 months old. I was raised here. My husband and I both came back here after practicing law in DC and New York to raise our family and to get involved in the community. Which we've done, and each in our own separate ways. I think that, you know, I started out in government. So I spent the first 10 years of my practice first at the EPA and then the state attorney's office, where, you know, there is pay equity because it's, you know, lockstep government employee salaries. I went into the private sector, but my firm, other than the runner, is all women. So I guess there's pay equity there. Because of, you know, just the nature of who's at my firm. I'm not going to tell you that I went out to start an all women law firm or anything like that. It wasn't quite that precise. I hired the best lawyers that existed, and they just happened to be women. So I think, you know, the Florida Bar has done a lot of studying of this issue. Obviously, equity in the world is super important. I wouldn't say that's our primary purpose, but we have studied it, and we do have committees, and had a special committee a few years ago to look at the issue of, you know, the sort of things that were raised by our esteemed speaker, what we see in the legal profession. And hopefully I can bring some of that, as well as, you know, my own perspective of having both negotiated with my employees about salaries and seeing how other people do it. Of course, I've many friends at many different types of practices, and I have some perspectives about how we as women can be better advocates for ourselves. It's a little scary. It's not something we're really taught when we're young. I mean, I know I was taught, a typical middle child, I was taught to do a good job and, you know, take care of yourself. But, you know, the idea of negotiating for yourself and being an advocate for yourself, you know, I think there are some societal issues that require a lot of retraining of our brain, and I'm excited to talk about those things.
So excited to have the different perspectives. Thanks so much. Schuyler, welcome.
Thank you. Afternoon or good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel and tackling an issue that is really important and permeates within the society, and particularly in the legal profession. My name is Schuyler Smith. I am a board member of the Miami-Dade Chapter of the Florida Association of Women Lawyers. And I'm also a partner in a boutique trial firm called Hamilton, Miller and Berthasell, where I handle all aspects of civil litigation in Florida and in the US Virgin Islands. I started out my practice, I've been practicing for about 10 or 11 years, and I started in government as well, where pay equity wasn't really a thing. We were poorly paid, but that was everyone. And so after that, transitioned to a civil law firm, and I'm now at my current firm where I've been for a long time. I personally have experienced pay inequity and have had to deal with that, you know, in whatever organization it was that I was in. And I stumbled upon the information. It was not something that was very obvious. And so one of the things I'll talk about with respect to, you know, how to tackle this is knowledge. Knowledge is the first step of realizing there's a problem within your respective organization. And then the issue is, how do you deal with that? So I have found a home in my current firm where I do not have these issues. And so I am very excited to share my perspective, my thoughts on how we as women can get what we deserve. And I look forward to hearing the perspectives of everyone else on the panel with respect to this issue.
And I'm going to invoke one of our fellow board members who's on this webinar today, Marcia Noreen Weldon, and welcoming especially Natalie Norfus for a really special perspective. Natalie, welcome. And you're on mute, Natalie.
I'm excited. I'm all like excited and on mute. Good morning. I do this often. I'm super excited to be here. I was going to shout out Marcia as well. Super excited to see her, and another employment lawyer in the audience, Valerie Kiffin-Lewis. Good morning. So I am an employment lawyer. And so outside of being a woman and dealing with pay, I obviously have perspective on this issue just from a legal standpoint. But briefly, I started practicing law a lot of years ago. It feels like I just decided to stop saying the number because it just, every time I get it wrong, but started in Cleveland, went to Chicago, have been in Miami for about 12 years now. I left law firm life in 2013 to go in-house to Burger King Corporation, where I was the global employment lawyer, did the immigration law and the chief diversity officer, and then grew into an expanded role, having those same roles for the brands that we acquired, which was Tim Hortons and Popeyes. My last year with the company actually went cleanly into the business, which was a huge eye opener to see how that works, overseeing franchising for Burger King, helping franchisees buy and sell restaurants, and trying to identify ways to close the gap in diverse ownership in the system. I own my own firm now. I don't practice law as much. I work with clients on HR and DEI strategies. We work with clients as small as 18 up to as large as 17,000. We do a significant amount of listening in terms of what's going on with employees around the world. We were really fortunate recently to work on a project where our client had employees in 40 countries. So we got to hear from perspectives, and a lot of women included, from employees in China, India, Russia, Finland, Brazil, UK, Ireland. So we've gotten a big perspective on some of these issues. And again, my first Equal Pay Act case that I had to defend was about 10 years ago. And it was definitely at that point that it became very clear to me how difficult it can become to close some of these gaps with the law that's in place. And that a lot of what we are going to talk about today, to me, is more on the business side, and where businesses have to check their moral compass, as I often say, about how we approach these issues, because the law has some very slivery ways to do it, and it's difficult. It's going to be very difficult to rely on the law only to close these gaps. So thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Amazing, fantastic. So let's talk about challenges and issues. Sheena, we're going to start with you.
So one of the things that I wanted to discuss today, and this is just really amazing, if I may pause and say, This is what we do as women lawyers. We get the opportunity to sit together and converse about important factors that impact us. And thank you for all the male guests that may be here, but this is for us, by us, and for us, and it's amazing to be here. So sorry we had to do that. But as you know, especially my members, we face the double-edged sword of not only being a woman, but you also being a minority. And so when you look at, you know, some of the implicit biases that exist, so we know that, you know, there are some preconceptions that come along. And one of the things that I thought was really amazing was that the studies continue to show that the implicit bias exists, and that even as recent as July of 2020, New York, NYU came out with a study that showed that there's a perception that men are brilliant, right? And so if in our profession, in the legal profession, being brilliant is the key. That's what you want. That's the presentation. So if the perception is that men are brilliant, so how does that impact women lawyers and women in general? And so we encourage our women, our girls, our nieces to work hard because we see the brilliance in them, and we push them, and they are successful. The number of new women lawyers in our field have increased, but the fact that they're still facing these issues because of that implicit bias is something that we get to attack. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was looking at that, what the studies are happening in our workplace, what is creating these issues, and that this preconception is even impacting women in the way to negotiate from themselves, and even the fear of making one minor mistake, which would cause, you know, some devastating impact in their eyes or in their profession. So this is something that I really want to look at and address and fully explore so that we can, you know, talk about shifting that perception.
Thank you so much. Dory, what are you seeing?
I thought a little bit about, you know, the panel and some of my thoughts, and did a little bit of my own research. I apologize, I am not a researcher, although I do, you know, find it interesting. And one of the things I found was in 2020, you know, last year, of American workers, there was a study done, and 57% of all women said they had never negotiated their own pay. 57%, as compared to 51% of men. So there's a gap, right, of who's willing to negotiate their own pay. 70% of the men said they prefer giving a specific number, like, this is my number, you got to, you know, meet that number if you're going to hire me, compared to 61% of women. So there's a gap there. So there's like something going on that I'm trying to understand. Women, you know, and the studies also show that women have this confidence gap. I'm not so sure it's these women on this panel either. These are pretty amazing women with a lot of confidence. You know, and I know some of them, so I know they are really confident. But when Harvard Business School and Wharton did this study, they found that that women, you know, have a real gender gap in self-promotion. You know, it's you know, not polite. You know, we view it differently than others. Women also, I think, feel that there may be some sort of backlash by overplaying their accomplishments as opposed to underplaying them. It's that, you know, how do we use our wiles to get what we want, and not being comfortable saying, hey, I got this great result in court and everyone should know about it. And I myself, I'm always the second person to raise my rates. I litigate against probably 5 lawyers in town, and they're all men. They're older than me and they're men. And I need to stay in parity with their rates, or else people are going to think I'm not as good as them, right? So I always raise my rates. But why don't I raise mine first? I mean, maybe I'm better than them in certain respects. I have more energy. I'm younger. I'm harder working in so many ways. But I wait for them to raise their rates, and then I raise my rates. And so there's something about that even with someone like me. So I recognize that there's this sort of underplaying and, well, you know, do I really need to raise my rates? I make plenty of money, but that's not how men look at it, right? Men look at it differently. What am I worth? Not what do I need, or is it, am I being greedy? So I think that we really, really have to work on ourselves and recognize this kind of weird discomfort we have in being overly successful. Because these women on this panel are all super successful, you know, as successful, you know, as each and every lawyer that I know in town. And, you know, why do we have this discomfort? So I'm really more focused. I know that there are a bunch of jerks out there, and some people say things to me that, like, you know, I almost at this stage of my career laugh at. Like, if somebody says something, I don't feel uncomfortable anymore. And that's the other thing. If someone says something really crappy, why do we feel uncomfortable about it? Why can't we simply say, you know, I had a lawyer say to me a couple of years ago, you know, you need to act like a lady. And I was like completely baffled. I was in court. I didn't even know what to say. And later I was like, go back to my office and I'm like, hey, you know, we've been friends a long time, and that was really offensive. I don't know what you're talking about. I think I have to act like a professional. And so when you say I have to act like a lady, I don't even understand it. It makes, but like, I think the other thing is for us to have a little bit of a strength of persona, so that when some idiot maybe mistakes me for, I don't know, a court reporter, it doesn't happen to me anymore, I'm too old. But they, you know, or maybe might say something that I think is demeaning. I really, you know, and of course I'm older, I'm not a young lawyer, but it's like of no moment to me, zero. I'm like, what was that guy talking about? I just went in and went emotion, and he told me to act like a lady. I like, so part of it is how we train our brains to accept all of this stuff. So I'm really hoping that as we move along, you know, and the younger lawyers that we're teaching our daughters, as Sheena was saying, are the kids, you know, their value, it has nothing to do with your sex or sexual orientation or anything. It has to do with your value in society, and that we're not, that we teach, there isn't this confidence gap of saying, this is what I'm worth. Or that if someone says something kind of crappy, that we're like, that we don't go back, or that the person who should feel bad is the person who said it. I mean, we should be saying, like, what are you talking about? And I will tell you that guy that I wrote the email to, and because I went back to my office and I wrote the email to him, and I was like, I'm writing you this email because I care enough about our friendship to let you know that I just think that I don't even understand it. And he didn't respond, but about a month later, he responded because he was in Denver visiting his daughter, and he told his daughter the story. And the daughter was like, what did you say? How could you have said that? And probably a month or 2 months later, I got an email from him, and, you know, he apologized. But so I think there's all of that, and having the confidence to really deal with it in a way that isn't, that actually moves the needle. So I'm hoping that we can work on all those things together.
Fantastic stories. That one's going to ripple. That one was, you just dropped that pebble here, and that is rippling out today.
Okay.
Right? For sure it is. Shyler, go ahead, your stories.
All right. So I really think that there's a problem, right? And the problem for me stems from a few things, which my panelists before me mentioned. So one, I think there are both implicit and explicit biases towards women that impact the pay and the opportunities that we get in our respective, you know, roles. And some of the biases that I think exist are, for instance, the fact that, one, we're just not as good, we're not as smart. And so we may not be able to handle the complex matter that pertains to, you know, a product that was defective, because, you know, that's something for a guy that he'll figure it out. Then I think there's a bias in terms of women that, you know, they're more interested or they're better suited for their families and their husbands. And so we don't want to take on the role that's too time consuming because we don't have that time. Three, I think another bias is just that, you know, we won't present as well in the face of our clients as our male counterparts will. And so all these biases obviously are nonsense. And so the question is how to interrupt them, which I guess we'll talk about in the next 3 minutes. And so I have had issues where, you know, the complex case wasn't given to me, or, you know, the opportunity to go meet the clients wasn't afforded to me. But that quickly changed for me when I basically forced myself to be recognized. And so you can say that the case wasn't appropriate for me because I'm handling the cases and I'm doing the work and the client recognizes it. So sometimes your clients recognize your worth before the people that you work for. And what the clients say is often gospel, because the clients translate to money and firms are here to make money. And so you really have to be competent. You have to be the best at what you do. You have to outwork your peers. And you have to make yourself seen as someone that's a contender within the space that you're functioning in. I think that goes a long way to both the opportunities that you'll be presented with, and also, you know, your pay when it comes time for that discussion. Another issue that I noted is basically, and again, it's what Dory mentioned, I call it self-limiting attitudes, but this is the whole confidence piece. And I remember one of my bosses told me when I was a baby civil lawyer and I had no clue what to do. I think it was my first week or something, and he gave me a motion to dismiss. This is after I was coming from working for DCF, and I had no clue what a motion to dismiss was and what to do. And he basically told me to act as if, and he told me to go watch some show, I forget the name of it, where the guy basically acted as if. And I'm like, okay, but how can I act as if I don't know what to do? But that's what men do. They come in and they act as if they know everything. And sometimes they don't. It may be figured out at times, but sometimes they get by. And so that confidence that you put forth, that you can take on the task, you can, you know, accept the challenge and rise to the occasion and go argue that motion to dismiss, and hopefully you win it. Then they're like, I didn't really expect her to do that. That was a losing motion. Like, how did she win? And so we have to check ourselves in terms of our confidence. Like, we all went to law school. We all took the same bar exam. And so if we're called to this bar, that means that we all have some amount of intelligence that enables us and affords us the right to be in this profession and treated equally. And a lot of times, people always say the most successful people are not the ones that graduated at the top of the class, but it's the ones that probably were in the middle of the class, but they have to work so hard and prove themselves, and they turn out to be the ones that you're like, oh my God, like I sat beside this guy in law school. He was like partying on South Beach every weekend. How is he now this big shot lawyer that's doing great things? And then the final thing that I noted as far as an issue is the lack of knowledge. So if you don't, clearly we know there's a problem within the legal profession, both locally in Miami-Dade and also nationally. This is not unique to Miami-Dade. So we know the stats, and we know that there is some sort of gender pay and opportunity gap as it pertains to women. But we have to be a little bit more micro in the analysis in terms of, okay, I'm a 10-year lawyer practicing in Miami-Dade County at a mid-sized firm. What should I be making as a base? Like what's normal? And then if you can either figure this information out from your peers or from recruiters or whoever it may be, you at least have a starting point. So you know you should be making at least $30,000, let's say, for argument's sake. However, if you know that you're a 10-year lawyer that's involved in Gwen Cherry and Miami-Dade Fall and the Florida Bar and national organizations, and you're speaking on panels, and every time you introduce yourself, you say, I'm with Hamilton Miller, right? And so you know that in addition to just being a 10-year lawyer, you're bringing additional things to the table, like being out there, promoting your firm, getting clients, whatever it may be. What's that worth? Is that worth another $20,000? So you should be making $50,000, or you should be asking for that. If you don't ask questions, you really won't get answers. And so a lot of people, a lot of women are not comfortable with talking about salary. And to me, I think that's really short-sighted. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it within your firm or your organization unless you have a really, really trusted friend there. But ask other people in other firms. And you can say, listen, don't tell me you're making 30. Can you tell me a range, give or take $10,000? So can you tell me whether you're making between 20 and 50? We have to be allies for each other, because I guarantee you the men talk about it to make sure that they are where they need to be. And so I think, you know, being able to talk to people and have mentors and have colleagues that you can call on for this sort of information is incredible. I'll also tell you guys that there's this new app that I stumbled upon. It's called Fishbowl, and it's basically an app that I think it applies to other professions, but you have bowls. So you have the woman's bowl, the Black lawyer bowl, the partner bowl, and you're anonymous in that bowl. And you can literally, I see people asking all sorts of questions. What should I be making? How do you deal with a crazy boss? How do you do all these things? And people actually answer the questions. So if you don't want to ask a friend, or you don't have a friend to ask, I would highly recommend joining that group or that app and putting some feelers out there and see what you get back.
Thank you so much, Shyler. That's fantastic. So Natalie, what are you seeing? And we're still on, we're just tying, can you tie a little bow on the challenges and the issues that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just take a step back a bit, because I do agree that it's important to know your own value. And as we work to close these gaps, there are going to have to be steps we take as individuals to fight for ourselves. But I think asking people who are impacted by the problem to solve it for themselves is often somewhat backward, right? We are not necessarily the ones making the decisions and deciding how some of this stuff is going down. So when you look at, to me, how, especially in law firms, which is, not just law firms, but the legal profession, which to me sometimes tends to be pretty stagnant and moving from a policy perspective, it is really going to have to come from the people who are making the decisions about pay. And so let me sort of note what I'm saying, get more specific, and also just give a quick anecdote. If you ever worked in a law firm, and we all know when you work in a law firm, you have billable hours. And if there's an associate who's not making their hours, going to the associate and saying, well, why aren't you making your hours, is sometimes a very short-lived discussion, because the associate doesn't know the pool of work available to them or how much work partners have to give out. And so, you know, when I'm working with clients that are in the legal services industry, it's sort of like, let's go to the source, right? Let's talk to the partners about how they're giving out work and the like. So I think that the same goes for pay, because if you're trying to negotiate, a lot of the tips that have been given so far are great, but they also indicate the issue of a lot of people don't know the rules. A lot of people don't know what it is that they're like fighting for. What is the range of money that's available? What is the expected, what should be the expected salary, which is why I think the first thing that a lot of organizations can work on, which obviously government has a big head start in this regard, is transparency around what is the job worth? not the person, the job. That's a place where we should all start. And then maybe negotiations would flow from a basic understanding of the value, because as Schuyler mentioned, are there additional things that you bring to the table that are above and beyond the base value of the job? So this is an issue that comes up in pretty much every context I'm in, around people wanting to see transparency, and transparency meaning give me ranges, show me what people are making in the compensation field. This comes up every time I do a listening session. And so that's the first thing. What are the rules? What is the job worth? Because that should take out a lot of the angst around how much should I be asking for? Da, 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 da. You have an idea of what it's worth. The other part of it is when we look at, and again, law firms in particular, like I said, the stagnation is really difficult. When I was in-house, it was always really stunning to me how the structure of law firms really hadn't changed much. And when you look at your clients and at businesses, the way businesses operate change rapidly. And so it is always sort of a conundrum to me that we were getting the same exact types of proposals when we were looking for legal services that were when I was, a summer associate accompanying pitches, many years ago. And so I think that, lawyers in particular can be very slow to change. And that becomes a part of, there's a lot of clutching to, well, if we tell everybody how we come to compensation decisions, like then what? And will we get sued? And all of these things where it's like, if you want to close the gap, if you're committed, you have to do things you've never done before, because the things that we've been doing this whole time have gotten us nowhere. They're the gap. And to see that in almost 10 years, the gap has closed by only 3% is pitiful, right? There's no other way to put it, because we're all very capable and smart people, and we're capable of doing really complicated things. So being able to open up the door, shed light on how these decisions are made, so that when you're inside of an organization, again, putting aside whether you own your own business, then you have some idea of the types of things you need to do to get the increases year over year, right? Because there's 2 points we're talking about here. What you get when you start, so what's the job worth? And what can you get as you grow with an organization? And so I am really big on this idea of value the job, not who's the better negotiator, because we all know that because of this pay disparity, that a lot of women, and particularly women of color, are coming in at a gap that was not created by the employer they're going to. So if we're relying on a woman to catch herself up from a gap she didn't create in the first place, it's going to perpetuate. So if employers, and a lot of employers get upset when I say that, we have budget, we have this, but you have the money, right, to pay the person what the job is worth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going out to search for the job. And so I think we really have to start thinking about what the rules are and making them apparent to everyone, as opposed to leaving it to us to say, okay, negotiate better, be more confident. All those things are important, right? But it's like that by itself is not going to be what closes the gap, because I can assure you, there are many confident women out here. I correct men often who come and say, well, women don't know how to negotiate. Yes, we do. We do. We negotiate having children and managing their schedules, managing all these client needs, trying to figure out self-care and taking care of ourselves, trying to drink enough water. Listen, we figure out ways to negotiate on a daily basis, and we might not always see it that way, but we do. So I'm not cool with sitting around saying and relying only on sort of this idea that women don't do enough negotiating or not confident enough. We don't have the rules of the game. And if you don't have the rules of the game, you're always going to be losing, so to speak.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. We often say that we come here at the Women's Fund together, like in a central square. We all gather together because we're interested. We put on our gender lenses just to look at things, because if we don't stop and focus, we miss things. So we put on our gender lenses. So what we are doing today is we're even like taking them off and we're like polishing them. So we're looking for that transparency, right? Because that is, it keeps on coming up. What's going to make such a difference? Please do join us in the next poll. This is really important because the stronger our community fabric is, the stronger our community is. And when you all connect, this is going to be that opportunity. So those of you who would like to be in touch with one of our expert panelists today, please, please fill it in here.
I just wanted to raise one issue because I thought this is important. It has been a real problem in our profession. Even when we've studied it, we have really tried to study the issue of pay equity, right? So law firms, as you say, they don't release information. And our biggest problem. So I absolutely agree that it would be great to have that data, that law firms are very insular. I mean, they don't provide the information. They don't provide information on, you know, equity partnerships of women. I mean, when we studied it, that was a real problem. And I'm not sure how to manage that problem because I agree it would be great for all of us to have that data. Listen, I think it'd be good for men too, quite frankly. I think all of this secret stuff is, this star chamber stuff is not so healthy for our profession. But as Natalie pointed out, we have moved a lot in change like businesses have. I want to raise one issue is the last year during this pandemic, our profession has changed more than it's changed in the last 50 years. I mean, truly. So maybe there's an opportunity in there with all of these changes that have happened, things like people working from home, which was always like, oh, she's a woman, she's working from home. Now everyone works from home. And so there is some opportunity, but I agree that it would be very helpful to have that information. I just wish I knew a way to get it. I wish I knew a way to break that logjam and get that information. So if Natalie has.
Well, Dory, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I see we're on the solution side. So if okay, I'll sort of at least think about it. No, it's okay.
No, it's perfect. Let's go with you and we'll go the reverse this time.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect segue, actually. So I think that when you're looking at least if we just take a step back of generally, what have we, if we're looking at what are we seeing? For certainly in what I do, which is a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, particularly since George Floyd, we're seeing a lot of fear in employers, right? Because the way in which we saw protests after the George Floyd murder is drastically different than anything I think most of us have seen in our lifetime. And so this has created this real energy for many employers, including legal services employers, which we do have as clients, around how do we fix this, right? And there's a lot of flurry and a lot of like, what do we do? And so I would say now is a great time to really be pushing employers on, if you've put out statements, whether it be about racial equity, racial justice, anything related to this topic, what is your why, right? So we have this conversation all the time. Law firms in particular, I've been part of a lot of those discussions. There's this round and round and round. But then it's like, if you know what your why is, and you have to have that real tough talk on the inside of your organization about what this means, and stepping out and being okay with some of the unknown, which lawyers are not typically that good with. We want to know that we have real answers. That's the first place, is finding your why. Second thing that needs to happen is you need to do a pay equity analysis. You'd be very surprised at how often employers shy away from doing these analyses. You have to know what your gap is before you can actually go out and do anything about it. And I've had this conversation again many times. Have you done a pay equity analysis? Get a great law firm. There's many out here that do them, that know the stats well and have the statisticians. And people are always afraid because they're like, well, if we do it, we have to do something about it. Yes, that's the point. So, I mean, the reality is, you have, when you look at the things that businesses, law firms, governments, any employer, if you look at what they spend money on, there's money to fix it, right? It's about where your priorities are. So it is getting into then knowing your own issue, right? Knowing your own sort of pay issues. And then the third is really, like I said, being able to sort of rip the Band-Aid on, you know, sort of continuing status quo by being sort of having the fear of being open about what you're going to do about issues. It doesn't have to go from 0 transparency to 100 transparency, right? I mean, there's always a range in how you do it. But I think you starting with, you know, trying to figure out how to close the gap of people that you have within, obviously working with experts on figuring out, you know, pay bands and what sorts of qualifications, what sorts of accomplishments, what sorts of performance do you need to have to reach certain pay bands. I mean, there's, again, this has been done many times and well by many people, but it's like, do that thing. That might be the first thing that you become transparent about, is what does it take, right? We should not be dedicating most of our waking productive hours to institutions who aren't willing to be honest with us. Why would you go into work every day and be in the dark about what it takes to be promoted, about what it takes to be get a raise? And again, this is not being critical. This is just some of those things that we think about. Like, why do I come and dedicate myself to you and I don't even understand what I need to do to move forward? And so this is, again, if we're thinking about the push and the pull here, the employers need to sort of, again, get real with themselves about what they really want. And that what you really want is going to take something much more courageous than what we're seeing. And when you're looking at yourself as an employee and what you're coming in and what you're bringing in, the value and your time and your energy and your beautiful souls, what you can be pushing to expect from your employer, right? Part of what I always struggled with is, why am I here every day and I keep asking about a promotion and I keep asking about what I need to do and I'm not getting an answer that makes sense. This doesn't make sense to me. And I know I saw Valerie's comment about partly why she started her own business. And I think for a lot of us, this is why we start our own business, because I can figure out my own value for me. I can say, you know what, this is what I know I'm worth. People are willing to pay it. Marcia has always been a great mentor in that regard. And I run down people all the time for that reason. And then just stand in your own truth. And I love what I do now. I'm super happy. And I loved the experience that I got. But there was always that, like, I don't want to keep having to beg when I know that the value I bring is something that you're not going to get in everyone who comes in and sits in my seat. So I push in that regard, because I do believe that a big part of closing this gap, let's just say even 70% of it, relies on employers. But we can step and raise these voices, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of really great plaintiffs employment lawyers if you all start suffering from people having problems with you speaking up. I'm not advocating much other than use your voice. It's there for a reason, and you use it for your clients. And if you treat yourself like a client, I can assure you that that will help move the needle. I'm hearing a lot more people just step outside of their, hey, porpoise, step outside of their comfort level in terms of just sort of sticking with status quo. So again, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an all or nothing here, but I will say, and I say it all the time, there has to be a rip the Band-Aid on a lot of this because there will be no movement if we keep trying to work within the structures that we've been working within.
And the crowd erupts. I mean, if we were all in person, this would be a really loud room, right? This is a really loud room. So, you know, amen, a woman, you know, everything's blowing up. There's a lot of agreement, and there's a lot to keep on sharing. So we're going to go backwards. We're going to go to you next, Shyler. Go ahead, please. Thanks.
All right. So I understand that it would be awesome if there was pay transparency. I don't think that's reality, though, particularly in the law firms. Maybe in-house it's a little bit better. Maybe in government it's a little bit better. But I think in law firms, we have a long way to go to achieve that. And so for me, I think that as far as practical steps to achieve pay equity for yourself or your colleagues or whatever it may be, there are a few things that I would say. One, I would encourage women to get allies. And those allies are women, and those allies are men a lot of times. A lot of times, the men are the ones that are the managing partners or the administrative partners, but there are also women, hopefully, that are on these committees or boards or have a voice in terms of advocating for you. So while you can advocate for yourself, and often we're not very good at that, we need to have people that are talking about us when we're not in the room, to other people, to the decision makers. So you need to position yourself in a way that Natalie or Dory are saying, hey, you know, Shyler, like, you know, her work is good, the clients like her, she knows the judges, she's planning events with all these people. You know, I really think we need to reward her, and I think we need to make sure she stays. Because if we don't reward her and she is onto this, which hopefully women are onto it, you know, she's gonna leave and someone else is gonna see her worth. And I see that so many times where we pay people crap and they have to move and move and move to keep getting like $10,000 or $15,000. And at the point that they decide to move, the firm is like, okay, but why are you leaving? We'll give you the $15,000. So if you could have given the $15,000 when she was going to leave, why couldn't you do that at her review? And so that may be because the law firm will, you know, if they can hold on to the money, obviously they're going to hold on to it. If you don't ask for it, they're not going to just give it to you unless there's someone else that's advocating for you to get what's due to you. That's thing number one. And that's so easy. I mean, there are so many organizations. All of us on this panel are people that are super active in the community, and I'm sure will respond to an email or a call and speak to you and give you advice. Number two is you have to distinguish yourself, because I just don't feel I don't feel that the playing field will be level anytime soon. And I cannot wait on someone to level it for me. And so I have to raise that level for myself. And how I have done that, and I think women can also do that, is to really just, you have to know your craft and know your area of law, whatever it is that you do well, and you have to be seen. And so for me, and this, I know that what I do may not work for a lot of people. I'm single, so I work late. And in all my firms, I'm always the last person to leave. And that is 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever it may be. And I have been in situations often where the people that I report to, or the people that have you know, power with respect to decision making, they're there late as well. And I remember in one of my firms, you know, I had the owner of the firm would walk around at like 7 o'clock and kind of like peer into all these offices. And he always saw me there. And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, Shyler, you hired me at some point in time. And so that's how I formed a relationship with him, because I was always there after hours when it's not, you know, business as usual. And so I was able to have conversations with, you know, the decision makers, not in the structured, let me knock on your office door and have a meeting type setting. And so, you know, I may not be the smartest person in the room, the courtroom, the boardroom, whatever room, but I'm probably going to outwork you. And so for me, that has worked. That has worked because I have gotten great results from my clients that are, you know, undeniable, it's objective. And so they see that and they say, wow, this is crazy. How is she doing this? So just be good at what you do. I ask a lot of questions. I am super involved in the community. And so because of that, I have such a wide net of people that I can ask about anything and get a response in minutes. And so that has been super invaluable for me in terms of being able to do a good job at the firm for my clients, and also professionally in terms of things that I may need insight on and I don't want to ask within my law firm. And then finally, I would say, you know, there's more to life than billable hours. And as much billable hours as I bill, I have a very vibrant life. And so I'm super involved in other things other than sitting at work or sitting at home and billing hours. And so, you know, you talk about balance and can women have balance and children and husband and all these things. I don't think you can have balance in all things at all times, but you have to carve out the time to get your work done, to live a life and maintain your sanity, and also do other things that further your profession. So for me, that may be speaking on something like this, or speaking on, you know, substantive matters within my practice. Writing articles, I don't like to write because I already write enough for work, but I'll speak if the opportunity presents itself. And I think when you do all those things, you have the confidence to either tell your boss, hey, this is what I've done this past year. I think I deserve X. And even as confident as I am not a good negotiator in terms of pay. I hate it. I hate it every year. And so what I've decided to do now, particularly where there are a lot of objective things other than just, you know, she bills a lot of hours, is I write down everything that I've done for the year prior, and I send an email to whoever it is the management folks are ahead of time and say, hey, this is what I've done. My hours are this, my clients are this. This is what I think I want. And so I do that only because I know that I'll get, you know, somewhat iffy if the conversation just starts and I wasn't prepared for it. So at least if the email's out there, they kind of know this is what she's thinking anyway. And hopefully I'm able to pick up on that and articulate that in the conversation. So it's tough, but you just have to do things that give you the ammunition to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of demanding what you ought to get.
Dory, can we ask you to add on to the solutions conversation?
First of all, I love as a solution to do it in a way that you're comfortable. So maybe if you take all the data of what you did and you, you know, kind of bring it together in that way, it helps you to negotiate. And I think that's the other thing. It's like most of us are trial lawyers. Well, I guess not all of us. Some of us are doing things other than practicing law. You know, obviously Natalie's doing something a little different with advising, but you know, we all have to find our inner way of doing things successfully. So the way I go to court and do things is way different than everyone else in my firm. Like everyone's like, I couldn't do it your way, Dory. Many people come to court and go, I can't do it that way, but I can, and it works for me, and I have a comfort level. And so I love the idea that we all have to sit back and say, okay, I know that it's more than just me being a good negotiator. And I appreciate Natalie's positions. Like we have to change structurally. But one of the ways I think we change structurally how this all works is to start negotiating for ourselves, start pushing that envelope. Like I agree, like you have to, you know, yes, all of those things of like, we need people to be more transparent. And those are all things, but I truly am concerned that even though I agree that all those things need to happen, is while we're in that process of hopefully going along. And by the way, the issue of pay transparency is not just a women's issue. It is a serious issue in our profession across, you know, many people. You know, I saw it. My husband always worked at big law firms and there was no pay transparency. So, you know, I see it as like a really big problem in our profession. It probably impacts women more adversely than men, because women are making less money than men. If we had transparency, that would make a difference. But I'll tell you this, that having run a law firm, having seen how law firms are weighed, law firms are about making money. And if you are invaluable and you are doing a great job, and it doesn't have to be that you work the latest, maybe you come in the earliest, maybe you just bill the most hours because you're really creative, maybe you get the best results, you bring in the most clients. I don't know what it is. I mean, law firms really look at those things. And they know if you're generating money and you're going to leave, they don't want you to leave. They really don't. So you have to then express your dissatisfaction with your situation, or else it's like, you know, that's where the comfort level comes in. So I like the idea of reflecting on what's the best way for you as a human being to address that negotiation, how you can do it. You know, you have to be mindful of it, right? I'm a crappy, what we're hearing, I'm a crappy negotiator for myself. And I want to explain why it is. My value is more than I'm being paid here. And by the way, if I don't get paid it, I get it, but I'm not going to be staying. Like, you got to put it out there also, like, don't be afraid, because if you're going to negotiate, you have to have a little bit of that gumption. So I love the idea of finding your inner way of comfort. And I think some of that is also just, I personally, as a woman, I don't think I ever woke up and said, okay, this is what's going to make me happy in my career. I just was not socialized that way. I was like, went to work, I worked really hard, I did a good job, then I got another job and I did it. And I had to sort of start being more mindful of, what do I want to do with my career? What's going to make me happy? What's going to make me fulfilled? And so I think all of those things are just really about being mindful of it. We have to help push that envelope, especially the more senior people in our profession, on this issue of transparency. I had a mentor who hired me from the state attorney's office. I am clearly president of the Florida Bar, in part because I had a great mentor and I had a great support system of many women around me. So we all, have to do all of those things to help people have the confidence to do those things, recognizing nothing's going to change if we don't change the men as well. I mean, we get that. That's like a truism. So I think all of those things have to happen. But I'll tell you, in my profession, even though there are so many women, and I got, I'll curse, I got a lot of shit from people when I first started doing this job. I did. Why? Because I was a prosecutor and I did things a certain way, and I started trying a bunch of cases, and a bunch of the men just did not like me. They were just, she tries too many cases, she's too brash. And I just, I was like, okay, we can't agree at mediation to try. And then I would just get a good result. And then all of a sudden, people started settling down a little. It wasn't so much, she's so horrible. It's like, okay. And some of those people that were not my biggest fans are my, I have cases against them, but they send me every case that they're conflicted out of, they send to me. Because they say, as much as it pains me, Dory, you are the best lawyer, to do, X, Y, and Z. So I think, we have to be mindful. We have to be creative. We have to find our own inner strength to do these things. We have to find mentors. And, there are men out there in the community. I mean, I think when my husband at one point was a county commissioner, all of his employees were women. He's like, again, he just hired the best employees. It doesn't mean everyone has those people in their lives, but you kind of have to try to do it. And so many people are so willing. And it's like, I saw that little thing, would you be interested in hearing from any of these organizations? Join these organizations, join the bar. You have to be a member of the bar, but, get involved with Fall or Gwen S. Cherry. These are amazing, strong, smart women with tentacles into the community. They're going to help you if you're not in a place where you feel like you get that support. So I really recommend sort of getting out into that space as well, because you'll find, I think, more support. And I think the support provides a level of confidence and comfort to go out into the world and do some of the things we're talking about that you might not feel so comfortable with. And the other thing is, I think 16 or 17% of all lawyers work at big firms. And most people work at small and solo firms. So we talk a lot about transparency at these big firms, but it's really not. The average lawyer is not working there. And so, when you talk about pay, you're also talking about, for lawyers, demanding that your hourly rate, telling your clients, I'm worth this. People say to me, your hourly rate's really high. I go, yeah, it's not for everyone. You know what? It is not for everyone. I totally get it. In the end, no one ends up complaining. I mean, they're like, well, could you reduce it? I'm like, no, I'm not reducing it. This is what I think I'm entitled to. I totally understand if it's too expensive. There are so many lawyers out there that are going to do it for half the price. Please do not feel, I am not insulted if you want to move on. So it's, for lawyers, it's not just pay equity of, what the guy is going to pay you at the big firm. So many of us don't work at those sorts of places. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that.
That's huge. And Sheena, since you're ending up this round of solutions, I'm going to ask if you to also cover the first question, since this is so rich and we're just going to have a short time for questions. So say whatever you want about solutions, but can you also ask this, Gloria Romero Roses, our board chair, asked, are there opportunity costs when one chooses the entrepreneurial route as opposed to staying within the firm and converging the forces for change?
That's interesting because, yes, so our solution is to have open discussion like we are today. This is critically important to really have this kind of discussion on the table. But one of the things I really wanted to communicate today when I was hearing from many of the panelists is really trusting your gut. You know when you're in that interview or you're in that review meeting that something is off or you're being held at a standard that is unfair. So trust your gut. Am I being treated at my value? Am I being recognized for my contributions? Am I being recognized for the business that I'm bringing in? And if your gut is telling you, no, I'm not, then having your own practice, having the opportunity to move on to another firm is probably the best solution for you, because you must examine what your worth is, what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to not accept. Understand the parameters of your personal needs for your family and your lifestyle desires. And if that's not what's happening in this environment, then that negotiation may turn into a situation where you're not very liked. And a lot of us have a problem with that, not being liked. But the most important person to like is the one that is looking back at you in the mirror. So when you leave that negotiation table and you're not satisfied with the results, or you don't believe that you're going to have that result that you seek, then it is time to really look at what your options are, create what you want in your life, in your future. So to employers, think about the jewels that you have in your organization and making sure if this is important to keep that person in place, then you have to recognize outside of what is typical or traditional for this role or this industry, what this individual needs. And COVID has shown us that the traditional is not necessarily the most profitable or the most convenient or the most efficient way to provide services. So think outside the box. Understand that, things like motherhood does impact but should not impact us financially, but they're a fact of life. And we have priorities that include work as well as our families. And so as employees, if you don't recognize that, you will lose that. And then those of us who recognize, hey, this is not where I want to be anymore, will move on and create the possibilities that they want in their future. So to that, I asked that question. So also I wanted to talk about, we as women recognize that these situations occur. And yes, we get to have an opportunity to create those spaces, create that space for upward mobility, networking opportunities, and give us ideas and solutions for what we want. If you don't share, if you don't tell your friends and colleagues about situations to problem solve, and you keep it within, there will be no mobility. There will be no upward movement for you. Think about these ideas for negotiations and learning that skills. Yes, I agree with Natalie that this is a job. If I'm a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year attorney and I am taking on a litigation case, I know what the value of that case is, and I know the value of my experience and my knowledge that's going to be applied here. As Dory said, there's information that I have in my mind after 20 years of practice that maybe a 5-year practitioner doesn't have, or skills or techniques. There's value to that. Conversations about your case or your situation, there's value to that. And we should not be apologetic about demanding that recognition for that value.
Can I jump in on the question on the opportunity cost question? Do you mind?
Please do, please do.
Yeah.
We're going to the Q&A and we don't have much time, so let's hit it.
It'll be quick.
Great, no, it's fantastic.
The reality is on all of this is, what does opportunity look like for you? Just like I said, an organization has to know their why, you have to know your why too. I was in a very unique position of being in a lawyer position and having a business role when I was looking at working as a chief diversity officer. What I learned from there is that the things I really love doing don't necessarily fit into one job. So there was a huge opportunity gain for me by starting my own business, because I get to do the things I really love. I actually saw somebody I used to work with and she's like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, oh my God, you created a business doing all the things you love doing. Absolutely. And so I think the reality is, it's not for everyone. A bunch of us, I know, because I've talked to Valerie and Marcia a lot about this. A lot of us can talk about the struggles that come with owning your own business and constantly needing to reinvent yourself and the like to make sure that you're staying relevant and pushing things forward. But wow, the reward is huge. This is the biggest reward I've seen in my own career because, again, I was very clear on my why and what was important to me. So I think there isn't really I don't feel like I'm missing out. I mean, I don't think there's a cost, because I'm pursuing the opportunities that are important to me. So hopefully that answers the question. But I think when you bring it all back to some of the points that have been made by the panelists today, it's when you know sort of your why and what that's worth to you, it creates this power in you to sort of push that when you're having conversations around pay and the like. So hopefully that's helpful there.
Awesome, awesome. We do have a commissioner with us. And so let's take the question, what would pay transparency look like in public policy? County ordinance, state statute, and federal law. And we've got like 3 minutes or something, because I'm going to be respectful of your time and we will end 10:30 sharp. So who wants to take it?
I think Natalie needs to take that. I have no idea like about what legislative position could be taken to require law firms to disclose.
Well, we have movement there, right? The EEOC actually had put in place, which got stalled, but had put in place where they were going to start requiring all employers. So if employers who have 100 employees or more are required to file an EEO-1 statement with the EEOC, the government, every year, which outlines how many women do you have in certain positions, men, and people of different races and ethnicities. There was a push by the EEOC to add pay into that. Of course, as you might imagine, there was a huge pushback because employers did not want to have to give all that information. And a lot of law firms, big law firms in particular, were working with clients on how to start getting themselves ready for that. It did stall. I would expect, particularly as administrations change, that there will be some of that comes back. But the reality is that there are states that are getting more progressive around what they're requiring from employers. Pay is a little bit slower, but we're seeing it on other things, like California just passed legislation that public companies in California have to have a diverse board member, for example, which obviously helps to make a change in some of these types of things. So I think it's sort of, and from a public policy standpoint, it's looking at sort of how can you impact the issue? What can you require from employers to make that happen? And getting sort of that alliance to it. I mean, obviously there will be employers that fight back because they want to be able to have that private secrecy around it. But ultimately, I would think that we would see a huge shift if the EEOC does pick back up this issue of requiring, or when they do, employers to provide pay data. Of course, that doesn't help for employers that are smaller than 100, but that might be sort of an impetus that gets, local ordinances and state governments to push for something broader.
So a couple of things we want to share about your Women's Fund. We are endeavoring to do not only more research that we will be shared a proverbial stone soup for our community. So, you know, pay attention there. Hopefully there will be more and more things that we can share, that we can have some rich meals together from our stone soup that we're creating. There's also going to be an advocacy committee that it's already formed and forming. And so I have a feeling that a lot of these conversations that start today can continue and blossom into others. And of course, everything that you all have shared today applies not only to the legal field, but beyond and beyond. I think I talked about the pebble you dropped before, Dory. Everybody has dropped so many pebbles. I think each panelist has given us ripples and excitement for a long time to come. It's amazing to have you all here. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure. And, you know, I promised, I hope you feel that this was more valuable than those billable hours. And we all know that you're all charging a lot. So I know we're asking a lot. So we hope that worked for you. We usually do a Power of the Purse the first Thursday of every month, and it will be our leadership pillar because it's going to be our Power of the Purse. So hopefully as many of you who are able to come and support and join us, and Jane Fonda and Madam Mayor and V and Aja Monet and Sedela Marley. Hopefully we'll see you all on April 8th. And do the exit survey if you can. I know you're busy. It's in your inboxes now as we speak. And I guess the next thing is this is your Women's Fund. Please keep collaborating and impacting, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sheena. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, team. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Judge Kelly, for being here. Denise, all of our board members, Sheena. Yay, you brought everybody together. Thank you so much.
It was awesome. More and more than it blew me. I'm blown away. You guys did a fabulous, fabulous job. Thank you so, so much. I can't wait till we can work again.
All of us together, and that survey can keep on happening, you know, they keep on going. Marcia, thank you. We're getting Marcia on soon.
Yes, yes. Have a great day, everyone. Let me know if there's anything else, any other projects. I'll be happy to, you know, help. You have a partner. You got it. You have a partner in me now. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to jump on with Chief Evia because the city of Miami is working with us too. Amazing.